Do you want to learn effective ways to build relationships, generate sales, and grow your business from successful entrepreneurs, startups, and CEOs without listening to a long interview? If so, you've come to the right place. Gresham Harkless values your time and is ready to share with you precisely the information you're in search of. This is the I Am CEO podcast.
Hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Lee Eisenstaedt of Leading with Courage Academy in Chicago. Lee, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hey, it's great to be here, Gresh. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you for being on. And what I wanted to do was just read a little bit more about Lee so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Lee is the founder of the Leading with Courage Academy in Chicago. He facilitates leadership assessments, workshops, and coaching programs, including DISC, emotional intelligence, and employee engagement that helps individuals and teams realize peace of mind and confidence as more effective leaders and managers. Lee just published his fourth book, Leading with Courage, in June. He's also an official member of the Forbes Coaches Council and brings more than 40 years of experience in the U.S. and Europe to his clients. Lee, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I'm looking forward to it, Gresh.
Awesome. Let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your background and what led you to start your business. So could you tell us your CEO story?
Sure. I got into this. I'm more of an accidental entrepreneur, I'd have to say. I had been the chief operating officer of the fifth largest accounting firm in the country, and they got a new managing partner. And what I learned when they get new managing partners is that they sweep out all of the C-suite executives beneath him or her. Oh. And I was caught up in that sweep. But, everything happens for a reason. And that prompted me to start on a journey of looking for another job. But for a variety of reasons, I just wasn't finding what I really wanted. But I was finding people who were interested in different things I had done in my background. For example, I had done a lot of client loyalty assessments and actually got a large award from my prior employer for them. And people were asking me, hey, can you do this for us? Or can you help us review our expenses and streamline things? And so they were looking for projects, not a full-time chief operating officer. And it was that realization that said, I really do have something here to offer. I wasn't sure that I did at first, but as more people kept asking me for one-off projects, that eventually one of them turned into an interim COO role that lasted 3 years. I was 60% of the time with that firm. After about 3 months of searching for, a full-time job, I started my own company. And that's what I've been doing ever since. What's great about it, I find, is I can never get fired from that again. I can fail, but I can't get fired.
There you go. That's definitely peace in understanding that. And I know it definitely takes, a certain skill, and I don't even know how best to put that skill. You probably can articulate that better than I can. And being able to kind of see the forest for the trees, which is kind of seems like you're doing, because it sounds like you've been on large teams, but you also helped out, a lot of organizations that have large teams to be able to be leaders, to communicate and develop that communication and engagement.
I was really fortunate in my career to work for some great leaders and for a few great companies that really invested in developing their leadership talent. And that's where I picked up the bug for this. I was a high potential, up and coming executive with a large consumer packaged goods company. And they invested heavily in their people. And it was during one of those early programs that I realized I had blind spots. We all have blind spots, but I went through a week-long program that really highlighted one of them in particular. And at the end of the program, you sit down with a psychologist for 4 hours, and the woman told me, if you want to get where you want to go, you've got to get over being uncomfortable talking about yourself. As a finance exec, many of us felt, me included, that was shameless self-promotion. I quickly came to realize that wasn't the case, and I needed to get past that if I wanted to get the international assignment that I was very interested in. Long story short, I came back from that program, started talking to a lot of people, and 9 months later, I was offered an assignment in Paris that lasted 3.5 years.
Nice.
And I would never have gotten it if I hadn't been made aware of that blind spot and encouraged to get past it, to take those blinders off. And then when you do that, all kinds of great things happen. for me, that assignment in Paris was a game-changing, life-changing experience. And so that's what I started to bring. I really got the passion for this after that and saying, we all have blind spots. What can I be doing to help people in their careers identify them so that they can be more effective in their jobs? And that then gets back to this notion of peace of mind and confidence that you're being the most effective leader you can be.
Nice. Yeah. And just like you said earlier, I feel like everything happens for a reason. So, the fact that you had that blind spot and then you had somebody that kind of point that out to you and had such an impactful opportunity that resulted from it. If that probably if that may not have happened, you may not have been able to do the same thing that you're doing with the clients that you're working with. So it's kind of funny how everything comes full circle. So I know you touched on it a little bit. Could you tell us, I guess, a little bit more on, what you're doing to kind of help support these clients and organizations you're working with?
Yeah, well, we work with individuals and teams, any industry, and what we have is a toolbox of assessments and workshops and coaching that are grounded in the book, second edition of the book I just published called Leading with Courage, the 9 critical behaviors of effective leaders and managers. And so it's through those different programs that we help people understand what they're good at, what the limitations are, and help them develop a plan or plans to address them. And then we stay close to them during the next 6 months, year, in helping them stay accountable for working on those plans. What I think people find the most helpful, it's when they have the courage to ask others, what do you think and how am I doing? That's the key to the whole self-awareness thing. I mean, that's part of the key. You got to ask the question, but then you have to be willing to listen and not be so arrogant that you don't want to change. And that's what we help people do. We encourage them to face up to their limitations.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a true, and from my perspective, I should say a true sign of leadership to be able to, ask for help or to bring people on that are experts and that can help you to see those blind spots, but also, like you said, have the humility and kind of not be arrogant and have that bravado to say that, oh, I know everything or I'm good at everything, but understand that, hey, this person wants to see you succeed as much as you do. And I think that's a true sign of leadership, in my opinion.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more. Our biggest competitor isn't other consultants. It's people in the C-suite, it's managers who say something you just said. I already know all this stuff, or I don't need that. I'm the CEO. Why do I need this? That's why I'm in the position I'm in. And really, we've all got blind spots. We can never be self-aware, or totally self-aware. If we are, it doesn't last very long. I read an article not too long ago that said 95% of us think we're self-aware. The real number is 12 to 15%. So that creates the market for my services, is when they have the courage to tackle the self-awareness issue, we're one of many great resources for them.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And so would you consider that to be like your secret sauce, what you feel kind of distinguishes you guys and sets you apart?
I think what really distinguishes us, because there's a lot of coaches out there. There's close to $13 billion a year being spent on leadership development. What I find is different about what we do is we can measure everything that we do. We can tell you the impact it's having on you. We can tell you the impact it's having on your people. And we do that through quarterly employee engagement surveys that as we work on things with you, it's going to be reflected almost immediately in how people feel about the organization. Are they energized, focused, and present? Most coaches that I know, they'll tell you, well, let's wait a year and look at turnover statistics. Let's take a look at the P&L. It should be better. We don't have to wait that long. We're doing this almost in real time, the ability to measure the impact that we're having on an organization and on an individual. So I think that's probably one of the big things, is we're data driven. And the other is the toolbox. It took us almost 2 years to put this together, and it can always get better. There could be more things added, but we're really quite happy with the tools we've got, which you had touched on: DISC, employee engagement, emotional intelligence. We have some great tools that help people on this self-awareness journey.
That makes perfect sense. And I think that's huge as well, just because a lot of times, like you mentioned, some people might say, okay, let's look at in a year to see how everything is actually going. But to be able to get that data on kind of a real time basis, because you never know if somebody, they might fill out that survey form and they may not have had a good day. It may not even be as a result of work. And sometimes that can skew some of the results. So to be able to constantly check on that and probably see the trends and see where things are going, it probably gives you a more realistic, maybe perspective on where things are and how things have improved.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But it also, if you wait too long, there's so many events that happen, so many things that take place in the course of, say, a year, that you can't really pin down what was the cause and effect of a change, let's say, in employee engagement. By measuring it every quarter, you know what you did. Oh, we took the whole team through a DISC assessment, or everyone went through some training on emotional intelligence. And you will see that reflect very quickly in the employee engagement, metrics. So we can pin down what's going on, the cause and effect of changes in leadership styles.
Absolutely, that makes sense. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And this could be an app, a book, or a habit that you have, or something that's from your book, but it's something that makes you more effective and efficient.
Well, certainly that whole notion of not being afraid to ask people, what do you think? How am I doing? That's probably my best hack. If you want an app, the one I absolutely love is Calendly, which takes all the back and forth out of setting up a meeting with someone. It's so frustrating to say, are you available then? No, I'm not available. How about this date? No, that doesn't work for me. Calendly takes that all out of it. And I can't tell you how much time I save with that. So that's my favorite app, I think. I use that almost every day. But if I had one hack, it would be asking people, what do you think? How am I doing? And then listening to them.
Right. I think those are two great hacks. Now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. And this is a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. Or if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
Identify your blind spots sooner. We all have them. Don't be afraid to uncover them. But I wish I had done some of this work much earlier in my career. I think I identified that one blind spot we talked about earlier when I was in my mid-30s. I wish I'd started doing this when I was much younger, in my 20s, because things could have been radically different. I would not have stepped on as many landmines as I probably did unintentionally, just because I thought I was doing the right things, thought I was behaving okay, but turned out I wasn't. And that's what really led to the book. There's these 9 blind spots that are the core of the book that anyone coming into an organization can learn from and needs to be aware of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. And kind of that quest for self-awareness is always evolving, it seems. But I've taken, DISC analysis and read a lot about emotional intelligence. So I think those are key things, because I always say, mastery of others, before you can master others or master the world or master whatever you're trying to master, the hardest and maybe most difficult thing is to master yourself. So to have understanding of who you are and your strengths and weaknesses and how you interact in certain situations is huge.
Well, and people can go to our website. When I wrote the book and identified these 26 attributes of effective leaders, I created a self-assessment, and it's free, absolutely no charge. So there's a link to it on our website. It takes you 5 minutes to complete, and it'll show you which of the 9 blind spots that I keep referring to that you may have to be on the watch for. On average, we find people have 2.75 blind spots. If you're earlier in your career, you could have, all 9. And if you're further along in your career, let's say you're the CEO and you've been there for a number of years, you may think you have 0, but you probably have 1 or 2. And the one that always seems to come up, there's 2 in particular: sticking with underperformers too long and not being comfortable with delegation. Those 2 will trip people up.
Yeah,
but it's free, totally free. You won't get a bunch of emails from us if you fill it out. It's just out there for you to learn about yourself.
Nice. And we'll definitely, have that link in the show notes as well, so that everybody can follow up. So, Now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Lee, what does being a CEO mean to you?
To me, it's two things. One, it's crafting the vision, sharing the vision with others. But the other thing I think it's so important for a CEO to do is to create other leaders. It isn't enough just to lead the organization. You have to be creating other leaders. And the sign of a great leader is that they've developed other leaders that can follow in their path.
Absolutely, yeah, because you never know what might happen or what could come up. So you want to make sure the organization, the whole team is very well prepared. So Lee, I truly appreciate your time, and in line with what you just said, I wanted to ask if there's anything more you can let our readers and listeners know, and then of course how best they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I love to hear from anyone. I told you about the free self-assessment. You'll find it on our website at lwcacademy.com, www.lwcacademy.com, or you can just give me a call, and my phone number is 312-827-2643. I'm also on LinkedIn. You mentioned that I'm on the Forbes Coaches Council, so I publish regularly on their publishing platform, so I'm easy to find. Encourage anyone, reach out to me, send me a note. Love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lee. And we'll definitely have those links, like I mentioned before, in the show notes so that you can follow up with Lee and hear about and connect with him with all the awesome things that he's doing. But Lee, I truly appreciate your time, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you, Gresh. I appreciated the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the I Am CEO podcast powered by Blue 16 Media. Tune in next time and visit us at IAM357.co. I Am CEO is not just a phrase, it's a community. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating. Grab CEO gear at www.ceogear.co. This has been the I Am CEO podcast with Gresham Harkless. Thank you for listening.